I love what I do. What can I say? I love what I do. I've been around addiction recovery for more years than I want to admit. I had my own experience of rehab in 1990, changed my life. Not because of the obvious stuff like getting abstinent, but what it taught me was one important thing, which was my strapline all through my teens, which is, I don't give a shit, do what you want, I don't care, was a lie. I cared a lot, I just didn't know how to care. And that's what rehab taught me. And I was inspired. I sat in that room and I thought, wow, I just felt at home. So I went on to train to become a therapist. Yeah. And I argued a bit with the industry because I thought, I don't think addiction is about drugs, alcohol. I mean, obviously we need to get abstinent from the self-destructive part of the behaviours, but they're not the issue. I had a sticker on my mirror in rehab, little round sticker up in the top right-hand corner. Somebody before me had tried to pick it off, and I did my damnedest as well. And what it said was, you're looking at it. Right, so I was looking in this mirror going, what's the problem? Poor me, why am I here? And this sticker's up in the top right-hand corner. You're looking at it. You're looking at the problem. It was me. I'm the common denominator for everything that happens in my life. And that might feel, a bit heavy until you realise that it just puts the answer in your hands. If I'm the common denominator, I've got agency. There's something I can do. Even if stuff happened to me, how I respond is up to me. I mean, not immediately, I get that. It's not an overnight success. This is not an Insta, everything's in your hands. You got to work at it, right? You do have to work at it. Actually, I don't like calling it work. People talk about working on themselves. I talk about discovering yourself, being with yourself. This isn't work. It's a pleasure. Might take you a while to enjoy it, but it is a pleasure because you're meeting the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. You're going to meet them and you're going to learn to love them. So yeah, that's what my job as a therapist is. And I loved it because I thought, what I have to do is I have to turn up well, and I need to be honest, and I need to be kind. That's what I do for a job. That's what I do. And I love it. I looked at the addictions field when I came in. Somebody, quite a senior doctor, psychiatrist, said to me, why do you want to go into addiction? He said, there's the outcomes are so poor. Why do you want to go into addiction? And I looked at him and went, that's why. So I came into the field and I launched London's first private outpatient clinic dedicated to treating addiction, which at the time wasn't really seen as possible, though it's all the rage now. And I think that, my thinking was catch it earlier. Just catch it earlier. So I launched it in 2008, just when the world went into financial crisis. And my focus was on something I call the core characteristics. So yes, there's a presenting issue, drugs, alcohol, work addiction, exercise addiction, food addiction, those kinds of things, but not chronic, right? So they're not chronic. Yes, if you're a chronic alcoholic, you need to go somewhere where you get detoxed safely because it's a very dangerous detox. I wouldn't do it in outpatient. But yeah, if you've got someone who's constantly drinking on their feelings, who is using drugs to cope, who, so on and so forth, if I can get them in earlier, we can perhaps offset the pathway, the trajectory of chronic addiction. So if I look at addiction, it operates on a continuum. Nobody airdrops into chronic addiction. You don't just wake up one day an addict. I also, by the way, don't think you're born an addict. I wholeheartedly believe that addiction is a nurture issue. That's not to blame anyone. It's actually to put the solution in your hands. Okay? So if you're on this continuum, and this is chronic addiction where you might need to go to residential, what happens here? I thought to myself. What's here? And this is where I thought, well, what do we do in rehab? What do we treat in rehab? What do we focus on in rehab? And as a result of thinking of that, I came up with a list of what I consider to be the core characteristics of addiction, normal human traits, right? But if they are skewed by nurture experience when you're young, they create the space that you want to then alleviate by delegating, by deflecting outwards. So I was thinking, if this is residential, what happens here that leads up to chronic, that if we can intervene on, you can offset it. And people not only working in outpatient can offset chronic addiction and learn new behaviours, but they do it in their lives. They do it not just, I don't have to go away to do it, so there's none of this embarrassment and I don't need to take a week or a month or a year off work. More, everyone around me can learn with me. All my support networks are part of my process when I'm, getting well. So I find the support networks outside of work. My family can do the work with me. And by the way, your issues are live. They're very here and now. Trauma stuff from youth, but also very here and now. Anyway, so I'll talk about those 12 core characteristics in a different video, but there are 12 distinct core characteristics. But of course, I set up a model that meant that people weren't chronic enough to come into treatment, because you're motivated to come into treatment because the wheels have well and truly fallen off. So then we've got to think what motivates people in. And what motivated people to come in was the notion that they could improve their lives without having to take massive amounts of time off work. And they could do it in the context of their lives. So I started working with families. Crucially, they would be with families. So I might get somebody in who was working with who was worried about a child. And I would say, okay, we can give the child this treatment, but let's look at the family context. Let's get mum and dad into some kind of outpatient process. So whilst the child is getting better and adjusting, the family context is changing. So when you put the child back in, the family context will support a new way of being. So it really allowed a very holistic approach, and it wasn't too dramatic either because we caught it nice and early. So that was my outpatient centre, and I ran several of them in different sites across London. And then I wrote my book, which was Proactive Parenting, which was a bestseller. It's got a parenting title because that's what Orion Publishing wanted, but it was a vehicle for my whole approach. So yes, it is for a parent to a child, but it's also the development of the inner parent. So if you want to read it for yourself in terms of how to address something in yourself, then it will help you. And I find it's really useful for people to read the book before they come and see me, because then they can mark things and say, that's the thing I want to work on. Didn't quite understand this, or, oh my God, that's totally me, or my kids, or my husband, or, right? So it allows you to be targeted when you come to therapy instead of this scattergun approach. Really like it when people get very interested in their own story and in what they want from therapy. Well, why are you here? What's your appetite for? And then I did all the television stuff because I really wanted to make therapy something that people could see, and they could see what it was about. They could see that it was a curious process. So I did 3 series of In Therapy with Celebrities on Channel 5, which was great. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed meeting the people I worked with. And it was interesting because I was actually in full practice right up to the last 20 minutes when I would be called to go and shoot the programme, and then I would go back to work. So this wasn't, let's do a day of shooting. This was literally just another client. It just happened to be filmed on television. And I think that helped as well with the kind of, this is genuinely therapy. And then I did Violent Child, Desperate Parents, again for Channel 5, which moved me, really moved me, going into houses in the UK where there was a child who was being violent and having 5 days to affect the family system. And actually to some success. I heard from somebody recently who was one of the children on that programme who wrote and thanked me 10 years on for, he said, for having a huge impact on changing his life. So, moving, very grateful. So, yes, I've done television, written, done podcasts, TED Talk, which is all about codependency, essentially. I try to bring to life these principles because if people are curious, if they stop thinking that therapy is for people who are messed up, therapy is for people who've got problems, it's not. Therapy, well-placed therapy, is for people who want to make a difference. It's for people who want more for themselves. Nobody comes to therapy out of despair. People come to therapy out of hope. I stand by that. You sit in the chair opposite me and you say, help me, put another pair of eyes on this, another set of ears. Please, I'm stuck. I can't see a way forward. I can't work it out. They're saying, can you shake up the information a bit so I've got another line through, so I get some sense on my life. This is all about self-worth. The person who sits in the chair opposite me says, I'm worth fighting for. I want to make sense of stuff. I want to do something more with my life. I want to meet my potential. So that's why I do so much press, television, talking, TED Talks, all of those things, is because I just want to spread the word that this is not about fixing problems. It's about connecting with yourself and fighting for yourself. It's about knowing you're worth it and getting some help so that you short circuit that learning process and get on with living your own life. Have it. It's yours. It's yours. Enjoy.